While she has disputed several parts of the interview and claimed a significant disregard to context in what she has said, here's a quick look at some remarks by her that have sent waves across American political landscape. On the US-Venezuela tensions, Wiles, referring to Donald Trump, has said, and I quote, "He wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle." One of the greatest untold stories of the US government is the talents of the CIA. Remember, this is in complete contrast to how Trump justifies the boat attacks, calling it a drug war. The conflict between the two nations has escalated to the point that Trump has ordered what he calls a total and complete blockade of sanctioned oil vessels heading in and out of Venezuela. The Republican leader also declared Maduro's regime as, quote, foreign terrorist organization. Now, Trump's latest Israel visit and speech at the Knesset also had a comment from Susie Wiles. The American president had praised Israeli armed forces and made no mention of the Palestinian civilians killed back then. On this, Wiles has said that Trump does not realize there is an audience in the US that does not love it. But it was not just Trump. Susie Wiles did not spare the Vice President of America either. According to the interview's excerpts, she called J.D. Vance a conspiracy theorist. But Vance has downplayed this remark and praised the Chief of Staff's loyalty to Trump.
And Susie Wiles, we have our disagreements. We agree on much more than we disagree, but I've never seen her be disloyal to the President of the United States, and that makes her the best White House Chief of Staff that I think the President could ask for.
Well, Wiles also did not take kindly to the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who has found herself under the spotlight for the release of the Epstein files. According to the publication, Wiles has slammed Bondi for a botched-up job in the early stages of handling the Epstein files saga. Now, surprisingly, the entire administration has come forward in defense of their colleague, from Bondi to Christine Noem to the White House press secretary. Everyone has hailed the Chief of Staff's work and dedication. In terms of the power structure and influence that she exudes, remember, Susie Wiles is perhaps the most powerful person in the US administration after the president himself. As the administration approaches the one-year mark, her remarks, though disputed to an extent, raises questions. Is all not well within the Trump administration? Or is it really a hit piece by Vanity Fair, as the entire Trump cabinet claims? Let's decode this entire controversy for you. We're joined by Mr. Richard William Painter, who's a lawyer and professor at the University of Minnesota Law School. He's joining us live from Minnesota. Mr. Painter, thanks very much. You're also somebody who's had, an experience of working with the George W. Bush administration. So I want to ask you how you see this entire controversy. She's not just called Donald Trump as somebody who's had an alcoholic's personality, but she's also given away the location of the deep state, as it is called. She said deep state is not in the US State of Department. It is, in fact, in a military-industrial logistics complex. So much more that has been said by Susie Wiles. What do you make of it?
Well, I've never seen a White House Chief of Staff give this type of an interview in any administration. Certainly didn't happen in the Bush administration. And I think it indicates that there's quite a bit of chaos in the Trump White House that this would happen. We'll see where it goes from here. The president thrives on chaos in some circumstances. It's a very different administration, that of George W. Bush or President Obama or some of the others, where, as I said, this would never happen. You never have an interview with Vanity Fair with a White House Chief of Staff, probably at all, and certainly not an interview where the White House Chief of Staff was saying things like this.
Mr. Painter, do you buy the claim that the entire Trump administration is saying that this is a hit piece? Because, all of them have posed for a photograph, they've given out interviews, they know what they're doing, and therefore Susie Wiles also knew what she's doing.
Oh, I think she certainly doesn't know what she was doing. And, it's a hit piece in the sense that it doesn't look good for the Trump administration, doesn't make the White House look very disciplined. It's a serious concern that the president is ordering these strikes on boats off the coast of Venezuela and other unilateral actions here without the consent of Congress. Yet his White House staff appears to be in some disarray. This is definitely a matter of concern.
You know, she's talked about, Mr. Painter, about Venezuela, about Vladimir Putin, about Prime Minister Netanyahu. She's spoken about a lot of issues, a plethora of issues that might impact the upcoming midterm elections. Do you think this sort of an interview will have an impact on the midterms?
Well, it may. We'll see where things go with the midterms. I mean, the vast majority of voters are concerned about the direction of our economy, that inflation still is a problem. I don't think the voters want the president getting us involved in foreign wars, particularly without the consent of Congress. So what's going on down in Venezuela is increasingly of a concern to many voters. If the White House appears to be chaotic, that's not going to show that we have quality leadership there. Now, whether the Democrats can run good candidates to get elected to the United States Congress is a separate conversation. They have problems in their own party as well. And indeed, one of the reasons Donald Trump was elected was that President Biden clearly was not fit for a second term, and yet a lot of Democrats covered that up and had to switch candidates at the last moment. So we've got disarray in both political parties, and we'll see how that plays out in the elections.
You know, this is exactly what I was coming to next, Mr. Painter. The fact that, yes, there are a lot of issues at hand where voters will be looking at and how fair and how far the Trump administration has worked on these issues. But this kind of an interview, does it also, for Americans particularly, reflect the kind of rift that perhaps lies within the Trump administration? Yes, the entire cabinet has converged to defend Susie Wiles. They're saying we're one family. But obviously the kind of comments that have been made reflect some sort of rift, some sort of differences lying there.
Well, there certainly are differences within the Trump administration. We've seen this in the Republican Party, differences between the extremists who embrace racist and anti-Semitic rhetoric and those who are closer to the mainstream. The Democratic Party, too, has its conflicts between extremists who also embrace racist and anti-Semitic rhetoric and those who are closer to the mainstream. So this is increasingly a factor in American politics. Sometimes the people who make the most noise get the most attention, which is part of why I think you see more and more people giving these types of interviews. They get attention, and with attention comes political power.
All right. Let's wait and watch how this really moves forward. I'll leave it there. Mr. Richard Painter, thank you very much for joining us on WION and sharing your perspective.
Well, thank you.
All right, let's keep you updated with more updates from United States of America. Remember, President Donald Trump's popularity rating has plunged further, and it has reached close to the all-time low figure. A key trigger behind this downward spiral is rising concern among the voters about the country's economy. According to the latest Reuters Ipsos poll released on Tuesday, only 39% of Americans approve of Donald Trump's overall performance in his second term as president so far. Now, the popularity rating is down 2% from the last poll that was conducted earlier this month. The decline has been triggered by a fall in the percentage of Americans who approve Trump's work in terms of the American economy, which in the latest poll stands at just 33%. Now remember, this is Trump's lowest rating on handling the American economy. There is disdain within the Republican camp as well in these two polls that have been conducted this month. The share of the Republican voters who approve of the US president's handling of economy has decreased from 78% to 72%. Amid rising concern for the country's economy, the US president is scheduled to address citizens from the White House on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. local time. While there is no confirmation on the agenda of his address, reports say that Trump will cite his administration's achievements so far and also possibly tease the upcoming policies in 2026, a year when midterm elections will also be held. In a social media post, the US president officially announced the timing of his address. He said, and I quote, "It has been a great year for our country and the best is yet to come." From United States, let's shift our focus to France. It's been a day of protests in the country. From urban cities to rural fields, anger has been spilling onto the French streets. Farmers are angry over cow culling and Mercosur deal, while the Louvre Museum workers are holding strikes in the heart of Paris. The employees of the Louvre Museum, remember, are angry over the working conditions there. The world's most visited museum remains closed for the third consecutive day. Its workers are out on the streets demanding better working conditions and improved arrangements. Earlier in the day, 400 workers voted to continue the strike.
It turns out there are a number of issues that still haven't been resolved, notably the Louvre's management, which has offered no answers to the problems. As a result, staff unanimously decided not to lift the strike notice and to resume mobilization today, pending the Louvre finally providing responses that meet our expectations.
Now remember, this museum is home to iconic works like Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Nearly 2 months ago, the haste of French crown jewels worth $102 million exposed the security gaps. Last week, a water leak in the museum damaged hundreds of books. Meanwhile, it's not just the museum workers. French farmers are protesting over the Mercosur deal. The deal, remember, is a European Union initiative for trade with South America. The deal aims to open South American markets for European goods in the wake of tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. Farmers across the bloc are worried that the European markets will be flooded by cheap South American goods. Brussels is gearing up to vote on the deal. Ursula von der Leyen is set to visit Brazil later this week, but France is pushing to delay the vote. President Emmanuel Macron has conveyed that the proposed trade deal does not work for French agriculture.
The President of the Republic has made it clear that, and I quote, "If the European authorities were determined to push this through, France would oppose it very firmly."
The next challenge is a lumpy disease spreading in cow herd. French authorities are carrying out mass slaughter of cows. One case is a death sentence for the entire herd. Angry farmers are taking onto the streets, blocking major highways using tractors. And so far, remember, 3,300 cows have been slaughtered against 113 cases. Farmers demand mass vaccination of cattle, but authorities are insisting on a mixed approach. As protests and strikes continue on the streets, the French government has secured a big win in the parliament. Lawmakers have given a green light to the high-stakes social security budget. Emmanuel Macron's pension reforms now stand suspended. And the next big challenge for Prime Minister Lecornu is passing the full budget proposal, where he faces the challenge to bring the budget deficit down. Any austerity measures will not just alienate political allies, it can further intensify anger. It is mounting in farmers as well as among white-collar workers. And for the latest, our correspondent Ross Cullen is with us from Paris. Let me straight away go across to him and understand what has been happening in France. Ross, I want to begin first by asking you about the farmers' protests. There have been long-term protests that have been happening. They are clear that they do not want cheap South American goods in the market. There's also the problem of cattle culling. Where do the farmers stand as of now as far as the government's assurance is concerned for them?
Yes, that's right. In the southwest of the country, particularly in and around the city of Toulouse, we have seen roads blocked, roundabouts blocked, as farmers have been staging many days and nights of protests against the imminent signing in Brazil this Saturday by Ursula von der Leyen of a deal between the Mercosur bloc of countries in South America and the European Union, and farmers are also demonstrating against the government's response to the spread of lumpy skin disease, bovine disease. The government says it is stepping up and accelerating its vaccination campaign, but it has also been bringing in a policy of the mass culling of cattle, which farmers are saying is ruining their livelihoods. But the government is saying that it's having to deal with the disease through a mixed policy of vaccinations and culling.
Ross, on the other hand, you've got the Louvre Museum workers protesting as well. And one would think this is one of the most famous museums of France, and therefore working conditions would be great there for people who are employed there. But clearly, people aren't satisfied.
Yes, that's right. The museum has been closed for a couple of days, partially reopened today, Wednesday, after staff have been going on strike. The majority of the 2,500 staff who work in the museum over the conditions inside the world's most visited museum. They are saying that there's not been enough done to deal with substandard catering, inadequate toilet facilities, the huge queues that people face every day inside the institution. Now, the museum directors say that we have this plan that was announced earlier this year with the French government to overhaul the Louvre, particularly putting the Mona Lisa in a separate wing, to try to ensure that there is more of a chance to see the actual painting, which is remarkably small. At the moment, the only chance really to see it is through a sea of hands holding up smartphones to try to get a glimpse of the painting. Huge queues in that room where she is at the moment. So there have been problems for tourists who've been coming here trying to see the paintings inside the Louvre Museum. Of course, there are many other museums in Paris, but that is the world's biggest museum, such a draw for many people to come to. It's been closed for a couple of days because of the strike, and also it's another blow to the museum directors after that daring daylight heist in October.
Absolutely, Ross. Louvre Museum has been in news, but for all the wrong reasons. Thank you very much for joining us at the moment and getting us the latest from France. All right, moving on to news from Pakistan now. Imran Khan's sisters and supporters were met with water cannons by security forces as they staged a sit-in protest near Rawalpindi's Adiala jail, demanding a court-ordered meeting with the PTI founder. The police used water cannons and bait-in charges to disperse the PTI protesters after Imran Khan's family was denied a meeting with him. Videos shared by the party on social media platform X showed water cannons being deployed to break up the protest, with a large group of police standing nearby. PTI has hit out at the government for defying an Islamabad High Court order issued in March this year, which mandated meetings with Imran Khan twice a week. That's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The party also accused the government of using chemical-laced water cannons on peaceful protesters, calling it state brutality and an assault on the constitution. In fact, in a separate video shared by the party, Imran Khan's sister Alima, drenched from the water cannon, was seen inspecting her hands and alleging the use of chemical-laced water. Meanwhile, the sons of former Pakistani Prime Minister expressed their fear of never seeing their father again, alleging that he is being tortured in a death cell. Speaking with Sky News The World with Yalda Hakim, Qasim and Suleiman Khan revealed that they have not spoken to their father, who has been imprisoned since August 2023 for months now. Qasim Khan outlined the harsh reality that his father faces inside prison, saying that he's been in solitary confinement cell for over 2 years, where he's had filthy water. He's around inmates who are dying of hepatitis. He's completely isolated from any human contact, and they're now worried that they might never see him again. While Sulaiman Khan described his father's cell, where he's allegedly confined for 23 hours daily, as a death cell. He also criticized the completely substandard conditions, saying that they do not meet the standards that have been set by international law for any prisoner. The words by the brothers reflect what Imran Khan's sister Uzma Khanum shared after meeting him in prison earlier this month. In an interview on The World with Yalda Hakim on Tuesday, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's spokesperson Musharraf Zaidi denied these claims, that Imran Khan is being kept in solitary confinement. In fact, in a 2023 tweet, Musharraf Zaidi had called Imran Khan's arrest as disgraceful and warned that Pakistan will not be able to become normal anytime soon. And when asked by Yalda Hakim whether he still stands by that tweet of his, Zaidi reaffirmed his position. From Pakistan, let's talk about Nepal, which is heading for elections next year, months after the Gen Z uprising and overthrowing of the government that pushed mainstream politicians to the margins. But the old guard of politics is now eyeing a return. But even before parties fight each other, a high-stakes political contest is playing out within the CPN-UML, the party which was at the helm of affairs when the protests took place. At the center of this battle is incumbent party chair KP Sharma Oli, who is seeking a third consecutive term. He's being challenged by Ishwar Pokhrel. The next big post up for grabs is that of the party general secretary, where Shakar Pokhrel is facing a challenge from senior party leader Surendra Pandey. Now, this leadership race has left the party divided. KP Sharma Oli is facing intra-party opposition after the Gen Z-led movement ousted him. Meanwhile, Ishwar Pokhrel is backed by several senior party leaders. Over 2,000 delegates are eligible to vote in the leadership elections. Scores of UML party cadre have flooded Kathmandu. Remember, these elections are going to determine the internal balance of power and future direction of the major political player in Nepal's politics. And for more details, our correspondent Saloni Murarka has sent us this report from Kathmandu. Take a look.
3 months after the Gen Z movement, Nepal's largest communist party, CPN-UML, is electing its new leadership. All the delegates and the party members have lined up in large numbers to cast their vote at the venue here in Kathmandu. The entire venue is dotted with placards, posters and cutouts of the candidates. Former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is eyeing for a third term, but is being strongly challenged by Ishwar Pokhrel for the top post. On the eve of the nomination filings, many of the key leaders from Oli's camp switched sides after Oli chose same old repetitive faces for the several positions in the party, while the Pokhrel faction brought in new faces. What was expected to be a smooth management internally election for Oli turned out to be more complicated, unexpected results and competitive. I'm Saloni Murarka reporting for WION from Kathmandu, Nepal.
And on that note, it's a wrap on Race to Power, but news and updates will continue on WION. Up next is Beyond Fine Print. Thank you very much for joining us at the moment. Bye-bye.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesaria at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
And we are live on WION World is One. We are glad you're watching. Thank you very much for joining us at this hour. Time now for Fine Print. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines. Ukraine claims at least 19 injured in fresh Russian attack. Firefighters battle flames after Russian airstrikes hit Zaporizhzhia. Russian President Putin says there are some calls in the West to prepare for a major war with Russia, describes this as hysteria and a lie. Germany approves $59 billion in military purchases. This as Berlin accelerates a defense spending ramp up to face the threat posed by Russia. Ipsos poll says US President Donald Trump's approval rating has slipped to 39%, nearly the lowest level of his current term. This as voters from his Republican Party soured on his handling of the economy. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the 5-day strike by doctors in England is dangerous and utterly irresponsible, warns them not to abandon patients amid flu outbreak. India and Oman will sign a free trade agreement on Thursday in Muscat. It will be signed in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is on a 4-day, 3-nation visit. In a rather ironic turn of events, Pakistan praises the renovation of Lindsay Zong, a historic fortress in Bhutan, without knowing the key role of India in funding the project. The Arctic records its warmest year ever. Scientists say the region is heating at an alarming pace. Findings raise fresh concerns about climate stability and global impacts. And while number 1 Carlos Alcaraz announces split with coach Juan Carlos Ferrero, the Spaniard ends a 7-year partnership that saw him win 6 Grand Slams and reach world number 1. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says US President Donald Trump has promised Donbass to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Trump has given an ultimatum to Ukraine's Zelensky to accept security guarantees or lose them completely. As Trump piles pressure, can Zelensky hold on to his territory? Here's a report.
Time is running out for Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. The situation on the front lines remains challenging. Outgunned and outnumbered, Ukrainian troops are struggling to keep Russian troops at bay. Moscow is expanding its military presence to gain complete control of Donbass. Ukraine's infra is badly damaged. These are the latest images from Zaporizhia. Ukraine is struggling to keep lights on under Russian attack. Most of Ukraine is suffering from lengthy power cuts as temperatures drop. Ukraine faces a tough choice. Trump is pushing Zelensky with an ultimatum to end the war. He wants Zelensky to cede territory in exchange for what he calls platinum security guarantees. The details of the security guarantees are still sketchy. They are likely to resemble NATO's Article 5 commitment. But Trump warns the offer is limited. He says such guarantees won't be on the table forever, an apparent ultimatum to Zelensky to agree to his terms. The US president believes a deal to end the war is now closer than ever, but concessions over land remains sticking points to a settlement.
Situation, we're trying to get it done, and I think we're closer now, and they will tell you that they're closer now. We had numerous conversations with President Putin of Russia, and I think we're closer now than we have been ever.
Moscow says Washington has promised that Ukraine will give up territory as part of the peace deal. Territories where Russians have lived for centuries will once again become part of Russia.
Putin demands Ukraine withdraw from the remainder of the Donbas region, made up of Donetsk and Luhansk, which is not currently under Russian military control. The Russian president vows his troops will liberate land by military means if Ukraine and its Western allies ditch dialogue.
First off, the objectives of the special military operation will certainly be achieved. We would prefer to do this and eliminate the root causes of the conflict through diplomacy. However, if the opposing side and their foreign patrons refuse to engage in substantive talks, Russia will secure the liberation of its historical lands by military means.
With Zelensky refusing to surrender land, Putin hard on its demands, and Trump desperately wanting to end the war, diplomacy now hangs by a thread. So does the fate of Ukraine. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And joining us live on Fine Print is Mr. John Erath, who is a Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation in Washington. Mr. Erath, good to see you, and thank you very much for your time. Russia's Foreign Minister has already indicated Russia's position, and the President emboldened that position that Russia will achieve Ukraine war goals unconditionally. What choices do you think Ukraine has right now, if any?
Ukraine has a number of options right now. Obviously, they can agree to give up territory. That's something they've been unwilling to do thus far. Or they can continue to fight on, or they can work with the United States and NATO countries to come up with a more acceptable kind of deal. That's probably their best option right now. The Russian progress on taking over Ukrainian territory has been very slow for the past year. So the threats from Putin and Lavrov to take by military force the remaining Ukrainian territories are somewhat empty.
Mr. Erath, the U.S. has maintained its position, especially when it comes to Ukraine ceding territory to Russia. Do you have a feeling that America or President Trump may budge and maybe change the U.S. position or even their stance?
President Trump's position has been that he wants to find a way to achieve peace. That's been his position throughout. There's no question of that having changed. What there's flexibility on perhaps is the means to get there. For the past few months, the fixation has been on the idea of exchanging territory for peace. This hasn't seemed to work. It's not acceptable to Ukraine or Russia in the forms in which it's promised. So there is certainly the possibility that there could be a change in policy and that another means might be considered.
Mr. Erath, finally, with all that is happening right now and fears of the war entering the 5th year, how do you think Christmas is going to look like or be for Ukraine?
I think anytime there's a war, that's going to make it very difficult. One of the interesting things about Christmas in Ukraine is that more Ukrainians now are celebrating Christmas on the Western Day, December 25th, than in early January, as they did when Russia controlled that part of the world. So it's a small but symbolic sign that things are changing in Ukraine, that its attitude and its orientation is more toward the West, and that certainly is at odds with Russia's war goals.
All right, Mr. John Erath, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you for talking to us today.
You're very welcome.
Australia is still coming to terms with a night of horror and a day of heroism as investigators piece together the deadliest mass shooting the country has seen in nearly 3 decades. The stories emerging from Sydney's Bondi Beach are not only of terror. These stories are of ordinary people who ran towards gunfire at a Hanukkah celebration meant to mark faith and joy. A father and son allegedly opened fire, killing 15 people in an attack police say was inspired by Islamic State and targeted the Jewish community. One shop owner is being hailed nationally for disarming a gunman. But Australia is also remembering others who paid their lives or paid with their lives trying to stop the bloodshed. Among them, Boris and Sophia Garman. The couple, both in their 60s, were filmed tackling one of the shooters as he stepped out of his car. Dashcam and drone footage verified by Reuters shows the moment, a desperate struggle for a rifle, seconds before they were shot dead.
There's no 5-point plan, but that's what one should do, and do it with joy, because if all you're left with after something like this is sadness and bitterness, then the terror and the evil have had some degree of success, and we won't let that, and Australia doesn't want that.
Another man, 62-year-old Reuven Morrison, was also killed after trying to halt the attack, his family saying he could not stand by as others were in danger. The shooting has shaken a nation that has long held its gun laws as a point of pride.
Well, I pay tribute to Boris and Sophia Gurman, who Boris attacked one of these terrorists as he got out of the car, and that caused Mr. and Mrs. Gurman, who'd been married for 60 years, to lose their life. To Reuven Morrison, who threw bricks and took action to try and stop this occurring.
After the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, Australia introduced some of the world's toughest firearm restrictions, mandatory licensing, background checks and registration of every gun. But this attack is forcing a difficult question. Were those laws enough? Authorities say the older shooter, 50-year-old Sajid Akram, held a recreational gun license issued in 2023 and legally owned 6 firearms, including a high-powered rifle. His son, 24-year-old Naveen Akram, has now been charged with 59 offences, including murder and terrorism, and remains under police guard in hospital. As the legal and political debate intensifies, the grief is still raw. Funerals were held today for Rabbi Yaakov Levitan and Rabbi Eli Schlanger, both killed while serving their community at the Chanukah by the Sea event. Australia mourns the dead and honours the courage of those who stood up unarmed when it mattered the most. President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has abandoned his plans to build Belgrade Hotel in Serbia. The move has sparked an uproar in the country. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić confirmed that a planned hotel development of the former Yugoslav army headquarters will not move forward. This after the investment firm linked to Donald Trump's son-in-law pulled out of the project. The president blamed a witch hunt for scaring away the U.S. firm. The announcement comes after Serbian Culture Minister Nikola Selakovic and 3 others were indicted over alleged abuse of office and forgery of an official document that allowed the removal of the site's cultural heritage status. Plans to refurbish the former Yugoslav army headquarters in Belgrade into a high-rise hotel was first stalled in May when there was accusation of forging documents of the building. The allegations reignited protests against the development. Protesters demanded for the towering ruins to be preserved, both for their unique modernist architecture and as a memorial to mark the 1999 NATO bombing that left the building damaged. At the time, Vučić blamed a witch hunt conducted against the investor and against any kind of change to the project worth over $800 million. Protests against Serbia's right-wing government began in November last year after the fatal collapse of a railway station roof, which had morphed into calls for snap elections.
Nemojte na stranu kriminalaca da stavite. Njima držite leđa, ljudi! Jeste vi normalni, bre?
North Koreans marked the 14th anniversary of the late leader Kim Jong-il's death. Thousands gathered to pay their respect to the deceased leader. With tourist numbers climbing back to record highs, Nepal has decided to start tracking the foreign visitors digitally from the 1st of January in order to boost safety and curb visa misuse in the country. All foreign visitors will be required to register detailed accommodation information through the central government's database. This replaces the earlier system that allowed only partial disclosures. Authorities say the measure will modernize an overstretched immigration network while giving them a faster access to location data in case of emergencies. The Himalaya nation is home to 8 of the world's 10 highest mountains. It attracts hundreds of thousands of trekkers to routes such as the Everest and Annapurna, where rugged terrain, isolation, and extreme weather have long posed safety challenges. The authorities say the new system, which plugs into Nepal's Foreign Nationals Management Information System database, will make it easier to locate missing travelers. The foreign visitors registration system was initially scheduled for a September rollout. However, it was delayed amid nationwide anti-government protests that resulted in the ousting of former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and saw several hotels set ablaze. Now, according to the World Travel and Tourism Council, tourism is a pillar of Nepal's economy, contributing 6.6% to the gross domestic product and supporting more than 1 million jobs in 2023. The system's first phase will cover Kathmandu's star-rated hotels in January next year. It extends nationwide by March to include trekking tea houses, travel agencies, currency exchanges, and other tourist facilities. Let's now take a look at the stories making headlines in India at this hour. The Lok Sabha has passed the nuclear energy bill. Union Minister Jitendra Singh has asserted that it will help India achieve its target of 100 gigawatts of atomic energy generation by 2047. The bill, which seeks to open the tightly controlled civil nuclear sector for private participation, was passed by voice vote amid a walkout by the opposition. Singh has termed the bill a milestone legislation that is set to give a new direction to the country's developmental journey. After a video emerged of Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar allegedly pulling down the hijab of a Muslim woman at a government function, a Pakistani underworld Don Shahzad Bhakti has threatened Kumar to issue an apology. In a social media post, Bhatti has questioned Nitish's conduct with a Muslim woman at a public forum. Nitish was also slammed by the Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, who said that Nitish might be slowly revealing his true colors. In a significant milestone, the Indian Navy has commissioned the new MH-60R helicopter squadron at INS Hansa in Goa. Water cannon salute was given to the chopper at the commissioning ceremony. It is the second MH-60R squadron being commissioned in the presence of Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, the Chief of the Naval Staff. A billion-dollar eye in the sky has just blinked. Moments after capturing a close-range look at an interstellar intruder, the 3I Atlas, NASA's MAVEN probe, has gone silent. Is this a mechanical failure, or is it something to do with a deep space visitor which is suspected to be operated by aliens?
Something very strange is happening as the interstellar object, the 3I Atlas, is nearing the Earth. This time, NASA is scrambling for answers. NASA's MAVEN spacecraft, orbiting Mars for more than a decade, had just done something extraordinary. It captured these images of 3I Atlas, the mysterious object slicing through our solar system at blistering speed. Then, without warning, MAVEN stopped talking. The last transmission arrived on schedule. MAVEN's instruments functioning normally, systems green. Then the orbiter slipped behind Mars on December 4th. A routine movement, expected blackout. 37 minutes of radio darkness as the red planet blocked Earth's view, when the spacecraft emerged from Mars's shadow and nothing came back. No signal, just silence across tens of millions of kilometers. While space probes can malfunction, but here the timing is interesting. Days earlier, MAVEN had turned its instruments toward a once-in-a-lifetime target, 3I Atlas, only the third confirmed interstellar object ever seen sweeping through our neighborhood. Science. From Mars orbit, it snapped images of the comet as it tore past at over 240,000 kilometers per hour. The coincidence is jarring. 3I Atlas is an object from beyond our star system, behaving with a chemical intensity that has already baffled astronomers. As the visitor nears Earth, MAVEN was supposed to be zoom in, but that camera has now gone silent. NASA engineers are working around the clock. Is it a software glitch triggered by the comet's unique radiation? Or did the interstellar visitor contain particles that affected MAVEN's sensitive sensors? Speculation is reaching fever pitch within the scientific community. 3I Atlas continues its journey towards its closest approach to Earth on December 19th. Spacecrafts and telescopes from Hawaii to India are tacking its approach.
And finally, on fine print, a group of ice sculptures of terracotta warriors are put on display at the world's largest ice and snow theme park, situated in China's northeastern province of Heilongjiang. The 27th edition of the Harbin Ice Snow World, which opened to the public, has captivated visitors with its winter attractions. Thank you for watching.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesaria at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight, we're getting you the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war with a series of attacks and counterattacks, several paths plunged into darkness ahead of Christmas, rail lines damaged, a complete roundup coming up of the latest from the battlefield and beyond. Where are things headed? This is coming up in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, why does the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir want mercenary dollar raids from Donald Trump for his troops in Gaza? What's really happening behind the scenes? Telling you all that you need to know. I'm getting you a detailed story on how and why the Australia beach shooter spent 28 days in the Philippines. All this and more coming up. As Christmas draws closer, whether it's on the battlefield or inside their homes, Ukrainians are facing relentless Russian strikes, heavy attacks plunging cities into darkness, damaged rail lines, and also the battlefield turning even more volatile. And along the front lines, the situation remains explosive. A rapid cycle of attacks and counterattacks continues across multiple sectors. Russian forces saying they struck 154 Ukrainian targets in the past 24 hours itself, while Ukraine's military reporting 151 combat engagements along the front, pointing to intense fighting with no let-up. And these visuals from southern Ukraine's Zaporizhia region. Russian forces carried out near-simultaneous strikes, setting large areas on fire, explosions and fires, marking a battlefield that remains firmly on edge as both sides fight for control. The Ukrainian authorities, in fact, claiming that at least 19 people were injured after the Russian airstrikes hit Zaporizhia. Kiev claiming the strike damaged residential buildings and an educational facility. Meanwhile, in Kiev, Christmas lights glowing, but the celebrations are muted. Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy grid have forced widespread power cuts. Residents reportedly now facing electricity outages lasting up to 16 hours a day. Businesses running largely on generators just to keep the doors open. Residents in Odessa remained without power for a majority of this week after missile and drone attacks crippled the grid. Many homes still without power, deepening the hardship on the ground. Odessa residents queuing up for water, filling up bottles from the emergency tanks placed across the city there. The attacks have disrupted daily life, to say the least. Basic services during the coldest period of the year also impacted. Ukrainian officials also claiming that trams were halted for a 6th consecutive day after Russian strikes crippled the power grid. Kiev claims Russian drone and missile strikes on energy infrastructure intensified in October and have since triggered major power shortages nationwide. Ukrainian officials reportedly warning that the attacks threaten transmission systems that move electricity from western Ukraine to the east, raising fears that the country's grid could effectively split into two. Ukraine's deputy energy minister saying Russia launched nearly 5,000 drones and missiles in November, more than double the number seen early this year, and he claims that it targeted power plants, transmission grids, gas facilities, key regional hubs. The railways also under fire. In the last 6 months itself, attacks on Ukraine's rail network reportedly tripled, with more than 600 strikes reported since the month of July, disrupting transport and logistics. Not just for the military, but also for Ukrainian citizens, of course. On the diplomatic front, meanwhile, the hope for a Christmas ceasefire remains slim. The Ukrainian president has said on Monday itself that Kiev supported the idea of a ceasefire, especially on potential strikes on energy infrastructure. During the Christmas period, the Kremlin has made it clear that any truce depends on a comprehensive and lasting peace deal, while the Russian president has warned that Russia will liberate its land by military means if Ukraine and allies ditch dialogue.
The goals of the special military operation will undoubtedly be achieved. We would prefer to do this and address the root causes of the conflict through diplomacy. If the opposing side and their foreign patrons refuse to engage in substantive discussions, Russia will achieve the liberation of its historical lands by military means.
switching gears for now, the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir wants mercenary dollar raids for his troops in Gaza. That's right, Pakistan's most powerful military chief in decades, facing the toughest test of his newly amassed powers as Washington pushes Islamabad to contribute troops to the Gaza Stabilization Force. And according to Reuters, Pakistan Field Marshal Asim Munir is expected to fly to Washington to meet Donald Trump in the coming weeks for a third meeting in 6 months that will likely focus on the Gaza force. Trump's 20-point Gaza plan, remember, calls for a force from Muslim nations to basically oversee a transition period for reconstruction and economic recovery in the war-torn Palestinian territory decimated by over 2 years of the Israeli military bombardment. Many countries are wary of the mission to demilitarize Gaza's Islamist group, Hamas, which could drag them into the conflict and enrage their pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli populations. But Munir has built a close relationship with President Trump, it seems, to repair years of mistrust between Washington and Islamabad. Remember, in the month of June this year, he was rewarded with a White House lunch. That was the first time a US president hosted Pakistan's army chief alone, without civilian officials, basically. And last month itself, the Pakistani foreign minister said that Islamabad could consider contributing troops for peacekeeping, but disarming Hamas is not our job, quote unquote. That's what he said. All of this coming amid Asim Munir's unprecedented rise in Pakistan. We've been telling you about this. Just days ago, he was anointed the chief of the defense forces to head the Air Force and the Navy with a job extension until 2030. He will be retaining his Field Marshal title forever, as well as enjoy lifetime immunity from any criminal prosecution under the constitutional amendments that Pakistan's civilian government pushed through the parliament late last month. So a lot has been happening on that front. And analysts are saying that only a handful of people in Pakistan actually enjoy the luxury of being able to take the risks more than Asim Munir. He does have that kind of power, which is now constitutionally protected. And it must be noted here that over the past few weeks, Asim Munir has met military and civilian leaders from countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, Qatar, which some analysts say appear to be consultations on the Gaza force. But Asim Munir's plans may face protests even at home. Analysts are saying that the involvement of Pakistan troops in Gaza under a US-backed plan could